You want a leadership style that's calm but has an edge. Take a look at yourself, fix both, get them to the right levels, and you're going to be a whole nother caliber of leader after that. Because they have to be able to count on you when there's a high pressure situation. The more emotional you are, the more emotionally reactive they will be, both good and bad. But what people need is they need a leader that stands for something, and they need to know what you stand for. But get excited about the right things. Your edge should bring intensity and urgency. Certain things that happen are going to trigger a reaction. You want to be very clear about what the standards are for the group. You want a leadership style that's calm but has an edge. Many people choose one or the other, to be calm no matter the circumstances, or to constantly be on edge, which is different than having an edge. In this video, we're going to talk about how to incorporate both into your leadership style with just the right amount of each. Why calmness matters. Your people need to see you calm and in control of the situation. And your steady state should be calm. But one thing to keep in mind is you really, in any leadership situation or in your leadership personality overall, you have to be yourself. But what you have to understand is people want you to be calm. And here's why. You have to reassure your people that you're in control of your own emotions, because they have to be able to count on you when there's a high pressure situation. And if you're not able to remain calm, people are not going to come to you. They're going to go to somebody else. Remember, we talked about emotional contagion, where people subconsciously mimic the expressions and the emotions of their leader. The more emotional you are, the more emotionally reactive they will be, both good and bad. And what calm leaders do is they build trust, and they set the groundwork for a psychologically safe environment where people can speak their mind, try new things, and not be deathly afraid of failure. I was just talking with a guy that I served with in Iraq just a few weeks ago. We had a reunion. And I was explaining to him I wasn't so sure about my contributions as a battalion XO or executive officer on that deployment, where my job was to really keep the battalion running. And it really bothered me through that whole deployment if I was doing enough or if my contributions were really on the mark. And what he told me was, yeah, even though you weren't on the street every day like the companies and the platoons, he said that the way I led assured people that no matter what the situation was, we were going to get through it. And this wasn't something that I'd even really thought about consciously throughout the deployment. It just kind of happened the way it happened. But there's really no better compliment than to get something like that, especially given that environment. But you have to have an edge. And here's why that matters. If you're only calm, you can be mistaken, or maybe you are, but you can be mistaken for being overly apathetic. Apathy you can think of as just being indifferent to whatever happens. But what people need is they need a leader that stands for something, and they need to know what you stand for. They're actually looking for you to get excited about certain things. Not be excitable on a daily basis, but get excited about the right things. You don't want to come off as emotional, like having things affect you emotionally and hurt your feelings or get your feelings all flustered, but you want to have a certain level of excitement. Your edge should bring intensity and urgency, competitive spirit, and then enhance your leadership style of being decisive. And having an edge not only affects your team, but it affects you as well. And they need to know that if a certain line is crossed, that they're going to see a different side of you. Certain things that happen are going to trigger a reaction. And the key is to define that line and be consistent. And here is the line, in my opinion. I remember thinking years ago that ignorance I can handle. If somebody doesn't know how to do something, we can work with them, we can get them up to speed. But laziness cannot be tolerated. If someone knows the difference, but just decides not to perform or not to do the right thing, that to me is the trigger for the edge. If you respond calmly to laziness, it's only going to continue and get worse. That's the time to show a little bit of an edge, because one of your main jobs as the leader is to maintain a high standard. And if somebody doesn't know something, if they simply don't know something, that's not a matter of lowering the standard. That's a training issue. You can fix that. But you got to be much more concerned with people's attitudes. And don't think of it as, and your goal is not to intimidate people. That's not the purpose of what we're talking about. The purpose is to show how you feel about certain situations. And your ultimate goal as a leader is to gain enough trust so that people don't want to disappoint you. It's not so much that they don't want to see your bad side or your angry side, is that they don't want to disappoint you. When I was a battalion commander, we were deploying to Afghanistan. We had 53 days to get out of the country and get over there. And about 45 or 40 of those days were spent in the field training in 29 Palms. And at the beginning of the training exercises, big training exercise before you deploy, very elaborate, very intricate and complicated training coordination, logistics coordination, we were really screwing it up. And I had to really get the team back on track because we were missing these training opportunities that really could have resulted in people dying. So one night in one of the A-frames out there on 29 Palms, I had to really light the whole staff up, about 30 guys in there, and I kind of went off for about maybe a minute, and I kicked everybody out of there, and I basically told everybody to get the heads out of their asses. So we improved after that. It wasn't perfect, but people had no doubt in their mind what was important to me, which was organizing our support to the companies to get them ready so that we could deploy to Afghanistan with all the training under our belt possible. Now we tell the story these days. It's kind of funny. We kind of laugh about it, but it needed to happen. So, how do calmness and having an edge work together? Think of it as maybe like a coiled spring, potential energy. You know, it's always there. You're not going to use it every day, but it is available and people know it. You have to show it at the right time. And as a leader, I don't think you want to show that, or it's really like a last resort. But you know, as a leader, that at some point you do have to show it. You do have to let people know without any doubt in their mind when they've crossed the line, when the behavior, when the performance is unacceptable. And again, remember, you have to establish that line, you have to be consistent. So it really shouldn't be a surprise to people when you react that way. They should say to themselves afterward, you know, something like, well, we probably deserve that. That's the goal. And again, for me, it's laziness. If you know better, but you're just not doing it, then for whatever reason, and everybody's different, you're making that decision in your own mind to do less. And we got to get that turned around. And it's not emotional, again. It's not that your feelings are hurt. You're doing it for the good of the group. And that should be obvious to everybody when that happens. And I've seen some leaders that do it too often, and you get the feeling that they're doing it to be like a tough guy, or that it's for their own, like, maybe personal image of themselves, or they think that, you know, other people are going to respect them more. But remember, respect is related to bringing value and ability. That's what people respect. If they look at you as the leader and they say to themselves, we really need this guy, we really need this gal to be in charge because they're doing so much for the group, that's the goal. That's what brings respect. It's not yelling and screaming. And you also want to draw the line at keeping it impersonal. You never want to take somebody's dignity. You never want to insult anybody as an individual. You're talking to the group. So how do you develop yourself to be able to use this effectively? You want to be very clear about what the standards are for the group. You want to have some almost pre-made or pre-thought out responses, or when the performance dips below a certain standard, whether it's rework or doing things again or having additional checks put in place. But you could think about some things that you need to do, maybe think about that ahead of time, the things that you would do. And then you're relying less on your emotional or your reactive kind of spur of the moment reaction. And again, you're not punishing, you're just getting everybody back on track. So, how to stay calm, pause a couple seconds when you get bad news or unexpected news, pause a couple seconds with total silence before responding. Don't and you know, kind of put those filler words in there. Leave all that out. Just take whatever amount of time you need to think about what you just heard and address it in a calm and organized manner. And by the way, one of those responses could be to ask for more information. Tell me more about that. Make sure you understand the whole situation before you react. And on the edge side, one of the things you can do when you address in a group or when you're concluding a meeting, you end with the black and white, the sharp action statements of what needs to be done and by when. Review that. And then something that's between calm and edge that you want to do is when you see something starting to veer off track, is talk about it directly and clearly. And it's not in a way where you're assuming somebody's doing something wrong, but if something just doesn't look right, maybe you pull that person to the side and say, it looks like we're doing this. Is that really the case? For example, if you're expecting a certain level of quality on documentation or a project and you can see that it's not there, You got to immediately talk to the people or the person involved and just have them tell a story. So to wrap up here, good leaders don't need to put on an act. They don't need to like artificially show that they're strong and powerful and loud. It really has nothing to do with it. Even having an edge doesn't have anything to do with volume. It has more probably to do with directness and confronting things. And you shouldn't feel the need to prove yourself to people. You do want to earn their respect, but that's different than proving yourself. Proving yourself sends you down a path of doing things that aren't really necessary, aren't really for the good of the group. They're more individually focused. You want to show your value as the leader so that people have really no choice but to respect you and trust you and value you as the leader. So in your leadership, where are you missing calm and where are you missing the edge? Take a look at yourself, fix both, get them to the right levels, and you're going to be a whole nother caliber leader afterward. If this video was helpful to you or might help somebody else, forward it on. If you want to get a hold of me, my info is in the profile. Love to help.